book bans and to fight for the freedom to read. And actually, let's start with Jonah and we'll work our way this way.
Well, I just want to touch on one more aspect of book banning, which is the number one most banned book is Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, which is a wonderful, beautiful book. And I think part of the reason that book is so often banned is because images are so immediate, and so these book banners pull out individual panels or pages from this book, and they're like, this is explicit, this is obscene, this is pornographic.
It's a graphic novel too, just so you know.
Yeah, so my book has not been banned yet. Now it's only been out for like 3 weeks, so there's still time. But images are so visceral and immediate, and especially in our culture where they're so easy to share online. I think that's a large part of why Genderqueer, Flamer by Mike Curato is another one that's consistently in the top 5, another graphic novel. So that's kind of disheartening that those images are being taken completely out of context. And you're right, they're not reading the books. So just wanted to touch on that briefly, but what can we do? So buy banned books, that is a huge way to support new authors. The American Library Association has a lot of resources and things you can do as well. You know, obviously contact your congresspeople, your mayor, your local representatives, your school board. There's also a fund where you can donate to support librarians who have lost their jobs or run into difficulties because they are fighting on the front lines defending these books. So there's lots of things you can do. I would definitely check out the American Library Association website. But yeah, start with buying the banned books, and because that I think also incentivizes publishers to keep publishing them.
Yes.
And even if there is pushback against these books in many areas of the country, money talks, and if books that are featuring LGBTQ and BIPOC characters and from those voices are continuing to sell, publishers will continue to publish them, and I think it's kind of a volume game. We just have to put out more books than the book banners even know what to do with, and keep getting these stories out there.
I agree with everything Jonah said. The only thing I wanted to add is I think another thing we can do is to continue to write and support each other in our artistic journeys. I think not allowing these book bans to silence us is really important. So I think if there's a lot of writers in this room, tell your story, but don't let these book bans and these hurdles and these challenges discourage you from chasing your dream and to getting your voice heard and your story told, because there's someone out there and many people out there in this world that need to hear your story. So that would be my one additional note of encouragement.
I would say, one, definitely go to school board meetings. I sent my mother to a school board meeting. It was my mother and my 2 aunts went to a school board meeting, and it ended up being like 600 people there, and like police, and like they got like fully escorted in, and spoke up on behalf of All Boys on Blue, and were able to keep the book in the library. It was like a city that was like 20 minutes from where I grew up. And so, of course, my mother was pissed, like when she found out that they were trying to ban it in Jersey, and she was all in. And so my mother and aunts have done videos with PEN America. They fight book bans. I send in videos to a lot of school board meetings anytime I get challenged as part of like the public response. So we do that. We do petitions. So if you see local petitions being signed, they do work. When it comes to the librarians, the teachers who have to deal with this nonsense, I always tell them, if you have classroom libraries, just take the book covers off. These people, they dumb, y'all. They're really not that smart. And I'm like, just take the cover off my book. My book has a big flower crown and my face on it. Of course they're gonna try and ban it. Parent comes in and sees it. If you take the book cover off, it's just a blue book. They don't see it. We've also been using the tactic of not calling them classroom libraries anymore and trying to switch the terminology to student resource centers. Libraries have different languages, are governed by different laws than resource centers. And so we've been telling teachers and librarians to change the name of what it's called. If it's not called a library, it's not governed by federal funds, you know, it all just, it's like legally, it's becoming interesting. I'm also part of a federal lawsuit, this is how I'm fighting back. I'm part of the first federal lawsuit in Florida to fight against the book bans. That's been interesting to have to sit in front of a judge and a Trump-appointed judge, and so that was fun going to federal court and hearing the judge's thoughts on things. But it was also surprising because you never know, which is why I'm grateful we did it, because the judge brought up the book A Time to Kill, which interestingly enough deals with a rape scene is in it. But you could tell that this judge read that book, and it probably was the book that made him become a lawyer. So it was a very interesting juxtaposition to watch in real time him have to realize the book that he loved so much growing up as a teen would also be banned currently under these certain circumstances. So he's now having to balance his own conservative views with the reality of the text that even I would want to read would also be caught in this. But that's why we did it, because it was tough to do anything in Florida, but it was like, we're gonna do this and we're gonna try and make it work, but that's how we decided to fight back. So all of those ways, I think when we do them all together, it then all makes sense. And at this point, I do feel like we're still winning. Like, I don't feel like we're losing this fight. I feel like we've been able to keep a lot of the books on the shelves. DeSantis just had to sign a new bill making it illegal or is it illegal for non-parents to challenge books, I think, in Florida? Because it started to get out of control. Anybody could challenge the book. Like the case that I'm in, 163 books were removed by a 66-year-old woman who has no kids in any school system. That's the type of stuff we're fighting. This lady clearly has not read all 163 of these books. She didn't even know who I was when I was in the courtroom. So that's what we're fighting against, and that's how we continue to fight.
And then part of it for you all to know is that it's not just the books that are on the ALA top 10 list. There's a chilling effect that's happening for librarians and teachers particularly, where they suddenly have to second guess themselves. They're like, I know this book would speak to my students, but am I willing to risk my job to bring it in? So, I mean, my day job is for the Independent Book Publishers Association, and we've been hearing from some of the smaller publishers that it's really affected their sales. Like their sales are down 50% in some cases because they focus on books with black characters and with queer characters, and that is right now the main kind of titles that are getting targeted. So I think it's also how can you support librarians, how can you support teachers, how can you get your voice out there so they know that they're supported by you, because it's the sort of the people that are quiet, being quiet. There's no such thing as a quiet ally, a silent ally. You can't be a silent ally, right? If you're going to be an ally, you have to speak up. You have to take action in some way, whether it's a petition or going to a school board meeting or somehow getting plugged in. Because being silent just lets the jerks have their moment. Absolutely. But we're not writing about the jerks. We don't write for the jerks. So we're going to sunset that issue, and we're going to talk about how do you focus on not